All right, good evening. It is Friday. It's time for our next stitch down our road to 100. This is going to be week 24. And here in the background, if you'll notice, this pattern here that I'm working on, this t-shirt, is actually going to be our stitch tonight. It's called the Lotus Stitch, like a lotus flower. This is a fun stitch. It's really fast. It's kind of quick and easy. I will let you know it is thicker. It is a more dense, kind of thicker stitch. Not necessarily what I would call a yarn eater, but it will take more yarn than the average stitch. Probably kind of in between being a yarn eater and then, being kind of loose, because it is dense, but it's not real compact. So it's based off the puff stitch and chaining, which is something we all know now, how to puff stitch and how to chain. So this should be a pretty fun, fast going, easy one for some of you guys to pick up and learn. It makes a really neat pattern and design. It's one of the favorite ones, which is why I'm using it on the t-shirt poncho that I'm doing next. So it kind of reminds me of the shell. If you've been learning the shell with us, we've done the shell and we've done the mermaid, which are different adaptations of each other. But if you'll notice, it kind of looks like that. Because it's a puff stitch instead of the treble, it's a little bit different, but it has that fanning kind of style to it. So it's kind of neat to do for borders. If you're doing a border of a blanket, it gives this little ribbed edge if you finish it out on the edge of a blanket. So it can be used in a lot of different ways, whether as a stitch for something or a blanket, either way for the whole blanket, or just as an edging stitch. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I am using just an H needle, size 5mm, and then just some regular medium weight yarn that I had. I've gone ahead and chained my 20 for our little quilt square, and then I've single crocheted back across that first row. Most of the time when I'm doing these stitches and teaching them, I do like to have a foundation to work off of. I feel like it's easier in the videos to see what I'm doing. So whether you start with a single crochet row does not matter. It just, to me, gives it a little bit more of an edging to base my stitch off of. If you'll notice on the t-shirt quilt, I did the same thing. I put a single crochet row to start and get kind of a foundation for it. Especially on a blanket, if you're going to go and do a border anyway, you might put a single crochet on the beginning of your blanket and the end of your blanket before you do your border. But it's totally up to you. Just know that I do that so that it's easier to see what I'm doing and more stable than a chain. So there's our V's that we're going to start out with. I've chained 20, I've single crocheted 20 back across, and now we're ready to start the lotus stitch. So to start our lotus stitch, every time we do a stitch, we're going to skip 2. So in this first row, I want to chain 1, and then I want to single crochet in this first stitch. Not the one that I'm already in by my hook, but the next one over, I want to single crochet. Then I want to skip 2. I'm going to skip 2 stitches, and in this third stitch here, I want to do a puff stitch. So remember the puff stitch, you're going to yarn over, go into your V, and yarn out, and keep it on there. I want to do a puff stitch of 3. So there's 1, this is going to be 2, this is going to be 3. There's my puff stitch. I'm going to yarn over and pull through all of those, and I have 2 loops on my needle. With the 2 loops, I'm going to yarn over and pull through both of them and then chain 1. For the lotus flower, I need 3 of these in each stitch that I'm doing. So I'm going to do this 2 more times in the same stitch that I'm working in. So yarn over and go in that same stitch that you're working in and put another puff stitch. And for these puff stitch, I'm doing 3 times in and out. So there's my 3 times in. I have 6 loops. I'm going to yarn over and pull through the whole entire puff. It leaves me with 2 loops on my hook. Yarn over and pull through both of those and then chain 1. Now I've got 2 puff stitches in my stitch I'm working in. I want to put a third one to round out my lotus flower. So in and out 3 times, leaving all the yarn and hooks on your needle. When you've gone in and out 3 times, you have 6 together and then your 1 original one. So pull through all 6 of these to finish your puff stitch. You have 2 on your needle. Yarn over and pull through both of those. Do not chain 1 now that you're on the end. Do not chain 1. There's your lotus flower in that stitch right there. So again, we're always skipping 2 whenever we move. So skip these 2 into this stitch here. You're going to single crochet. There is your lotus flower and your first lotus stitch. So we're going to repeat that all the way down the row. So we'll go over it again here. Again, before the lotus flower, you're going to skip 2. So you're going to go in this third one, and you're going to put 3 puff stitches with a chain in between each one. So again, you're yarning in and out, keeping everything on your needle. There's your puff stitch of 6. Yarn over and pull through 6. When you have your 2, yarn over and pull through 2. And then chain 1. Again, put another puff stitch in there. As you get used to the puff stitch, you can go a little faster. And you'll know what that feels like. But you're just going in and out on this one a multiple of 3 times. And then pulling through all 6 loops, pulling through 2. And then between each petal of your flower, you're chaining 1, but you don't chain 1 at the end. Skip 2, single crochet in that third one from where you're working. Skip 2 and do your next lotus flower. Now there's adaptations to this. On the t-shirt poncho that I'm doing in the background, I chained 2 between every lotus petal. One of the reasons I did that is because with the poncho and this stitch being a denser stitch, it needs to have a little bit of room to breathe, a little bit of stretch room to breathe. And so I wanted my flowers to be a little bit wider. So on this one here, I've chained 2 in between each of these petals. On this example here, I'm just chaining 1. So my flowers are a little bit tighter and coming out a little bit more dense. You can interpret that to however you want. I will tell you I wouldn't chain more than 2. Once you get to where you're chaining 3 in between each petal, the flower loses its shape and it's no longer the lotus stitch. So for the lotus stitch, in between these petals, we're chaining 1 for this tutorial. On the t-shirt quilt, I chained 2, but I wouldn't go more than that. You can have flowers that look like this. You can have flowers that look like this. But once you start putting 3 in here, then you're going to have a distinct hole, and it changes that this is not a flower anymore. It's more open up. So there we were able to do 3 lotus stitches on our little quilt square. So we're at the end. We have 3 stitches left. You're going to skip 2 and then just single crochet in your stitch on the end, and that ends your row. So you have a single crochet on this and a single crochet on this one. You've skipped 2 in between every stitch. Now we're ready to turn. Now this is the lotus stitch, so it's the same thing when we turn. It's just a repetitive of this pattern. So I'll show you how to turn and get into the next lotus flower. When we turn, we're going to chain 1. Now we have to put something here, but obviously our first lotus flower is here, and this would be a half lotus flower because we want our edging to stay straight. So we're going to put 2 puff stitches instead of 3 because we just want to make a half of a flower. So go into that first single crochet and just do a puff stitch. Chain your 1. Put a second petal in there. Not chaining because we're ready to do our single crochet. Now this time when you skip 2, you're skipping your flower and your chain. So your 2 are already there. So an easy way from here on out to go about your next stitch is just that every other 2 you're going to put a flower, every other 2 you're going to put a single crochet. Your single crochet is going to end up being on the top of your lotus flower from the previous row in the center stitch, the center petal. So all you have to do is just put a single crochet in that center petal. Your next flower goes in the skip 2, which is the chain in the next petal. There's a single crochet right here that you put between each flower. That's where that next petal goes. So you just puff stitch all 3 of your puff stitches into that single crochet that's in between the 2 petals from the flower before. Just like you did on the first row, just 3 puff stitches with your chaining in between. Remember not to chain on the last one. So there's our 3 puff stitches. We changed in between. We're not chaining on the last one. The next flower, we're looking to put a single crochet above that center petal. and then ready to put our lotus flower into the next one. And it just repeats. Flowers go in the dips of the single crochets go on the top of the flower. Then when you turn, you're ready to do the next row. But I want to go back and show you this edging where we just did the half flower where we put the 2. So the edge of your pattern is right here, and there's your first flower. When we turned, we wanted to keep our edging straight, so we wanted to put half a flower. So if you'll notice, by doing that, our edge of our piece is going to be straight like it should be, and it's not going to mess up our pattern. We're going to have those lotus flowers every other one just like we're supposed to. Same thing is going to happen on this end. So I'll get to the end and show you what that looks like here. So we're going to put our 3 puff stitches with our 1 chain in between into this single crochet from the previous row. So there's your flower. You're going to single crochet into the top of the middle of this flower. Okay, so we're at the end. We need just half a flower here to finish so that our row stays straight on the end. So again, we're just going to put 2. I want you to see why that works. So on these lotus flowers, when we're doing 3, so there's the full flower of 3. If I do just these 2, it makes kind of an L to that side. That's what we're doing on the first end. On this end now, we're going to put 2, and it's going to make that side of the flower. So it makes this end straight. I hope you can kind of understand what I'm saying going there, but let me show you. So in this single crochet here on the end, we're going to put 2 puff stitches to do just part of a flower. So there's our puff. Pull through those 6, pull through the 1, chain 1. Do a second puff stitch to make another petal so that we have the 2. There's our 6, pull through. This time we're not going to chain 1 because we're turning. We're just going to go ahead and pull through 2. And if you'll notice, our edge is straight. We didn't have to leave a gap for a flower. And we're ready to turn, chain 1, and go back. So if you can see, our edges are straight. We're building a square. And every space has a flower, a lotus flower in it with our 2 half flowers. Now we're ready to do what we did on this first row. So I'll walk you through that just so you can see what that looks like. But we've chained 1 and turned. This is the top of a flower. This is actually what would have been the center of the flower because we would have had a petal here if we'd kept going. So remember, we put a single crochet in the top of those flowers. Now we're ready in this single crochet to put our next lotus petal. So we do our puff stitch. Chain 1, puff stitch in that same single crochet, chain 1, and a third puff stitch for the last petal, and don't chain 1 on the end of the flower. You're ready to put a single crochet in the top of the next lotus flower. Now when you go back and hold your pattern out, that row, you can see your row is keeping a straight line. All your flowers are lining up. So every other row, you're going to have a half petal on the end, and every other row, you're going to have a full flower. So when you go back and look at your piece, your flowers are lining up and everything's staying square. So that is the Lotus Stitch. I hope you guys enjoy that. It's very fun. Like I said, there's so many ways to use it. You can use it as a border. You can use it to make a whole entire blanket just like this. Or like I'm doing the edging on a t-shirt, making a poncho out of it. You can chain 1 in between your petals. You can chain 2 in between your petals. However big or dense you want your flowers to be. Just don't go more than 2. Make sure you don't chain on the end of your flowers. And I will put the pattern to this in the comments of the video. Let me know if you use this. Again, any products that you're working on, even if they're not projects that have to do with this stitch, post them in the comments or to the page. Let us see what you're working on and how it's going. We'd love to hear from you all. And we will see you next Friday. Happy crocheting!